Welcome to DEFCON 3. I'm KT McFarland. Joining me today is Colonel Alan West. He's a retired Army artilleryman. He's a former congressman, and he's the author of the book Guardian of the Republic. What we wanted to bring you in and talk about today was the ISIS terror threat.
Yes.
We've seen this week that the Iraqi prime minister has suggested that there are imminent attacks against the United States and Paris, but particularly the New York subways. We've all been thrown into a flurry in the last day. Is there something to that?
I think there is something to that. The difference is that ISIS is really not just regional. Of course, they want to establish a caliphate, but they also want to be able to export their terrorism to other countries out throughout the West. We just heard about the incident that they were going to behead civilians in Sydney, Australia, and they broke up that terrorist plot. You also had this week a young Muslim boy, about 19 years of age, who tried to behead a police officer. He was shot. We know that they have individuals from the United States of America that are over there fighting with them, and some have even returned back. And Britain has an incredible problem with about 500 some odd of those ISIS fighters having come from the United Kingdom. And isn't it interesting that we had someone with a British accent that has beheaded 2 Americans and also a British citizen? So this is a very serious thing that is happening, and we have to be able to defeat it, not just there in the Middle East, but also on our homeland.
So when some have said, well, if we defeat them over there, we don't have to worry about them over here, and so therefore we should have a more robust military campaign. We know that they're bombing now. You and others have said that bombing alone isn't going to do it. Should somebody put boots on the ground, and if so, who?
Yeah, you're going to have to, and it should be us. If the President of the United States of America, who's the Commander-in-Chief, said that he has 2 imperatives, to degrade and to destroy, well, that translates to a military guide. There's a shaping operation. That's where you use your air power to degrade certain capabilities to set the conditions for your decisive operation, your combat operation, where you employ your boots on the ground, if you want to put it that way. But when you look at what is happening with the airstrikes, we have done a total since about the 8th of August of about 200 airstrikes. In a dedicated air campaign, KT, you do that 150 to 200 in a day, through the air tasking order. What we should have done is gone back to the Kurds and say we'd like to put our air forces back onto Kirkuk Air Base, so you're right there to immediately have an air cap over Iraq and also to extend it over to Syria. Right now we have these long lines that the aircraft have to fly, and that cuts down on the amount of time that they can loiter over a target. So we don't see a real effective air campaign. We started out with 22 airstrikes on the first day. 14 were against ISIS, 8 were against this new group called the Khorasan that no one had ever told us about. And then just recently, last night, we were down to 4 airstrikes. But yet we hear that ISIS has attacked 60 villages, Syrian Kurdish villages in the northern part of Syria, expelled them, and they just attacked an Iraqi army base and killed 100 Iraqi soldiers. So we are not really degrading their combat effectiveness. These gun tapes look really cool, really nice, but ISIS is still conducting offensive operations.
So how much do we have to fear then, that you say over there, how much do we have to fear over here?
We have to fear it immensely over here, because when the president stands up and says ISIS is not Islamic, that means he does not understand the ideology. And the ideology is what they're using to recruit and also to export back into our home countries. So terror is all about instilling terror into your heart and changing your way of life. We need to have a dedicated information operation campaign that attacks the ideology, not over there, but also here in our homeland, because they're being effective on the social media and all these other means with our young people. And so we've got to meet them on the social media and defeat them and root out these cells. The Attorney General, who is resigning, sent 40 FBI investigators to look into a civil rights violation of the Ferguson Police Department. What about the cultural jihadist problem that we have here in our country?
So do you think the problem then just gets worse over time?
It will get worse over time if we don't admit and understand what it is. And we cannot outsource our national security to the Free Syrian rebels or whomever. We have the capability here in the United States of America. If you look at what we did in the early days in Afghanistan in 2001, 500 to 600 special operators and CIA operators with the Northern Alliance, they routed a 70,000-man Taliban army and 5,000 al-Qaeda fighters in about 60 to 90 days. That's the model that you should be using.
Thank you very much. Colonel Alan West, author of Guardian of the Republic, and a man that many Americans think should have a little bit longer time in public service. That's it for DEFCON 3.